thank you very much for meeting with me today. And I want to congratulate you on your Emmy. Very impressive and very well deserved, and for one of my favorite episodes.
And thank you to everybody out there watching, or who helped, obviously.
Okay, so first question. What sort of combat martial arts training do you have, and what do you use most in your work on Revolution?
Well, I started at 13 with Jiu-Jitsu. I went from Jiu-Jitsu to Taekwondo and Wushu. I was a head instructor at 21 for 5 or 6 years doing Wushu. I have about, at this point, 25 years of martial arts. So I, use all of that in what we're doing.
Okay. You have a very impressive resume in film and the TV world. What do you find most challenging, acting in a scene, stunt work, or being the guy in charge of coordinating a scene?
I think it's changed over the years. I think the acting was at first, you get the nerves and the bugs out and stuff, and then start having fun with it, and then you go to another level. The next level being, doing the stunts and choreographing, putting stuff together, and then I think the next thing now is second unit directing and the things, being in charge of, the stunt coordinating and second unit directing, being in charge of the creative side of it and having that meld with the kind of action you want to put in it.
Right.
Yeah, so it's progressed.
Right. Do most of your ideas for the choreography come during prep work, or do you tend to work things out as you go during rehearsal on set?
Some of it, a little bit of it comes from the script sometimes, just because there's a creative process in the characters, obviously, where they're at mentally, or what's happened to them physically, if somebody's injured, different things, different situations. But then when it comes down to the choreography, I'll get an idea. I'll say 10 or 15% is actually from reading the script and what goes on, thinking about what I'd like to do maybe. But the main part of it really comes on the day before, if we get to rehearse. But usually on the day, which will just be there, just in the middle of it, and thinking like, okay, I think he would do this, and it's also thinking about the shots. It's easy to go from A to Z and think I need him to kill these 5 guys and run through that door. But then in the middle, there's a character moment, whether it's with David or with Billy, where, what would Monroe, would he have a smirk here? Would he take a pause and, look at the guy and know that he's got the guy before he gets him? And so that kind of goes in and it builds into the rehearsals. Yeah.
Okay, that leads me to the question, how many hours of training and rehearsal go into a big scene, such as like the one that was scheduled for yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday we had one that we got half of because of the weather here in Austin. But the day before, what we did was, it was about 16 people fighting for. I had 4 doubles and 16 stunt people show up at 1 o'clock, and within an hour and a half I had choreographed it and shot it all on video. And then I brought the actors in, and then they had about another hour to walk through what I'd built. And then everybody left, and then I edited it, put it all together myself, and that way I see, a final product, and then I send it out to all the actors so they can learn it. And then the next day, hopefully, if all goes well, we shoot it. Unfortunately, yesterday half went well, so we'll cut to take 2 of that next week.
Sure. So the next question is from Anna, and you have a little envelope there to open.
Thank you, Anna.
Anna is from Ontario, Canada.
Question. This is very cool. I like the wax seal. It's neat. All right, here goes. All right. It says, "Dear Mr. Wolfe, below you will find my question for you. Question: if you could choreograph any film action star, dead or alive, who would it be and why? Thanks in advance." Very cool. This is great. Well, that's a great question. I think. I've been blessed. I've fought Sammo Hung, Jackie Chan, Jet Li, Van Damme, Chuck Norris. So I've fought kind of all the big, in different movies and TV shows. I fought all the big ones that are alive, really. So I think I'd have to go with the dead version on that question. And I think the only one that obviously comes to mind is Bruce Lee. I'd have to. I know so many people who knew him, and the other side of that coin is growing up watching his movies. That he was so amazing, and for what it was, at the time, that I think putting it in now with what he could do and the things that, and the concepts, we're talking movies in the 70s compared to movies 40 years later, so I'd love to have him, present day, and be able to choreograph something that'd be amazing.
Right. Okay, next question is from Elet from Jerusalem, Israel. and she wants to know, you are very creative. Where do you get your ideas and creativity from?
You know, I think, honestly, I think it's just the love of movies. When I was a kid, my mom was a single mom, and we didn't really have that much money for a babysitter, so after school she would take me to the movie theater, and I would sit and watch Star Wars sometimes. That was when Star Wars came out, and I would watch literally 2 or 3 Star Wars shows in a row, and then she would pick me up from her job at 10, 11 o'clock at night, and I'd do the same thing the next day. So it would literally be ingrained in my head, whatever action movie or movie that I could get into to see, and usually I've probably seen Star Wars 200 times. Yeah. So things like that. But you know, it's kind of like, what other choice did I have to be in what other business? You know, that was it.
Right. Very nice. Okay, Liz from Sydney, Australia wants to know, I assume being a stunt actor would mean you have to research both character and actor you are working with and sync them. If so, how difficult is that to do?
Yeah, being a stunt actress, I think she's talking about me doing the roles. I think that's kind of like my cup of tea, if you will, other than the directing, the choreography, and the action, is when I get to play the character but also do the action scene. Because it's just like, I think, any other actor gets excited about being able to play a part, usually because of their emotional value of the scene or whatever's going on. But for me, I get excited because I get to do that, and I get to add that it's me as well, that I have the background to be able to do it. So when I was fighting Ryan Reynolds in the Green Lantern or whatever, it's the guy, I'm the guy that can do the fight scene and get thrown halfway across the alley into the truck or whatever. Or same thing with Ryan Gosling in Drive. I'm the guy that can do the fight scene in the elevator, so it doesn't have to be a double, and it doesn't have to, I don't have to stand on the sidelines and go, that's my character doing that. I can actually be the whole character. Right. That's what I enjoy.
Very nice. Okay, the Davis Whited family from Wilmington, North Carolina wants to know, what has been the most challenging stunt that you have created for Revolution?
Boy. I think the one that could have gone the worst, that was the scariest probably, was the Neville truck flip that we did last year.
Yeah.
Just because we had we had one of the best drivers in the business in that Humvee, but we also had I think it was a 19,000-pound troop transport that was on a ratchet that flew up in the air and flipped, and it's not one of those things where you can go, okay, hit the button and let's see what it's going to look like, because you can't reset it, and it's going to be trashed and the whole thing. So you literally, have to figure out the weights, and Dave Beavis from Wilmington was amazing. He's a special effects coordinator guru. He was amazing. But he figured out that side of everything, and I had the guy then driving by it with an explosion and being able to put the Humvee, and the thing with the Humvee is, the Hummers are designed not to flip the Humvees. So we're trying to turn a Humvee on its side that's not supposed to do that. So there's basically a lot that could go wrong there. And luckily, thank God, everything went great.
Yeah. So. I think for me, the one that I thought would have probably been really challenging was getting from the horse onto the train. The horse.
Yeah, that one was more funny than challenging, but yeah, it worked out.
Yeah, I'd like to see the film on that.
Yeah.
Okay, Lauren from Melbourne, Australia wants to know, what's the major difference with filming for TV compared to film?
Well, the major difference is time. On film, the bigger the budget, the longer the time that you have to prep and rehearse. TV, we're lucky if we get a day. If you get a day to rehearse, then that's great, and if you don't, you have to make it up on the day. Whereas with film, you might get 3 weeks, you might get 3 months, depends on how big the scene is. So that's why film ends up looking so much better.
Okay, and last official question, Julia, my daughter, from North Carolina wants to know, have you ever jumped from a building for a stunt? If so, at what height, and was it scary?
My goodness, yes, it was scary. I was actually the double for the Punisher in the movie Punisher Warzone. Ray Stevenson played the Punisher, and we shot that in Montreal, and there's a scene in it where he's trying to attack a building that's full of the bad guys, basically mercenary guys, all out to get him. And it was 10 degrees, freezing outside. And the character climbs a scaffolding that happens to be in the alleyway across from the building, and then he runs and jumps off the scaffolding from the 4th story, 22 feet across the alley, and jumps into a window that's on the 2nd level of the building. So I jumped 22 feet across and fell 2 stories as I jumped across into the window that was boarded up, by the way. So you crash through the boards and break into the room. And it was 10 degrees. So not only, you know, I'm up there and freezing, and they decide, oh, we have to move camera, you have to wait. So I'm standing up there and I can't really get down, we have to go. So 20 minutes of 10-degree weather in this Punisher outfit with a huge gun, and finally I just wanted to get into the building because it was warm. So, but that was the scariest one for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, did you know from a young age that stunt work would be in your future? Were you jumping out of trees, jumping bike ramps with your bicycle, and having lightsaber battles with your buddies when you were 10?
Absolutely. I mean, it wasn't that I was going to be a stuntman per se, but it was always, everything was character driven. It was always fantasy. It was always, you know, out of reality. So superheroes, lightsabers, you know, I mean, Star Wars for sure. And as far as, funny enough, as far as the stunts were concerned, it was pretty physical, but I lost my spleen at 13 from a fall off a cliff at a camp and bled internally for a day and a half, and then got rushed to the hospital and got my spleen removed. And the doctor was like, you know, half an hour more of internal bleeding, and that would have been it for you, and blah, blah, blah. So I guess at that point I figured if I didn't die from that, I'd probably be all right, you know, doing this kind of thing.
Wow. Did you do acting in high school?
I did. Yeah, I did. I actually, believe it or not, was the long-haired '80s rock star back in the day in San Francisco. I did musical theater. I sang. I did rock bands. I did the whole deal until I was about 20, 21, and then decided the music industry was far too tough. Let's get into the acting, television industry.
Right. Okay, last question. I see that you have another project in the works where you are stepping behind the camera as director as well as acting in the feature-length film Arcangel. Can you tell us a little bit about this project?
Yeah, it's something that's been in my head for about 7 years, and I finally had the chance about a year and a half ago to sit down and write, and I've gotten some great people involved. A lot of friends, maybe some of the people that we know in Revolution, maybe some other people in some other areas might be in it. Can't really say right now. But we're moving forward with it. It's in a good spot. It's at a couple of bigger companies that they're looking at it to produce it. I originally wrote it and thought I'm just going to get my friends together and all the action people and shoot it myself and do this, you know, kind of lower budget cool movie. But it's starting to actually pick up some speed with the other stuff we're doing. So there's a good chance that we'll actually see it on a big screen as opposed to just a DVD. So
looking forward to that. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, that is the end of the questions.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.